Today we are joined by the Provincial Minister of Police Oversight and Community Safety, Reagen Allen, to discuss his priorities for 2024. Minister Allen will elaborate on why these matters have been identified as priorities and how he believes this will assist in creating safer communities across the province. Minister Allen, welcome. It's good to have you back.
Ibi, I'm always happy to be here. Thank you so much.
You've been quoted as saying that when it comes to safety and creating safer communities, you will continue to prioritize this. What else are you placing front and center?
Ibi, I think it's very vital to again echo the LEAP program. We have seen our law enforcement and the South African Police Service. We are actually needing a proactive approach in order to tackle gangsterism and crime. Largely, it is always reactionary after a crime has been committed, and LEAP remains a priority for us because it's an evidence-based approach where our officers are deployed to a particular street at a particular time on a particular day, because we take the data, we take the crime stats so that it can be a proactive approach. Also, the work we do across our province in terms of the K9 units, we have seen a 38% reduction in the K9 unit from the South African Police Service. Hence, we've had to step in and step up, like in the Overstrand, in the Mossel Bay area, together with the West Coast. Our K9 units and our rural safety units is working with the South African Police Service because we have seen the chronic under-resourcing. I'm so appreciative of the men and women in blue that is working under tremendous and difficult circumstances, because we have seen our province see a consistent decline in the resources that we actually require. So that remains a commitment, and it remains my passion to ensure that we can ultimately help to ensure that SAPS becomes a professional organization and one that can serve.
I just wanted to delve into that a little bit more, because yes, we recognize that there are plenty of those LEAP officers, police officers that are doing excellent work, but there might be complaints from citizens where we experience bad behavior, from certain individuals. We can't just use a blanket statement and talk about all, but there are those that are displaying bad behavior that feel that maybe they are above the law. So how do we tackle that?
Thank you for that question. A week ago, I released information with regards to almost 200 cases that was made against SAPS members, and that ranges from assault to rape. And that is a matter that we take up with the Independent Police Directorate that ultimately investigate complaints against SAPS members. We are also the only province that has what we call a police ombudsman, which the Western Cape government initiated, and any particular resident that has any service delivery complaint against the South African Police Service is more than welcome to take that up with the police ombudsman that actually investigate these matters, because we are wanting to ensure that the service delivery is improved and that our oversight always leads to better service delivery.
Now, it's all good and well prioritizing certain matters, but how are you, your department, and the Western Cape government as a whole contributing to safer communities?
I will speak directly to our policing needs and priorities, which is a report that we compile in our province. That particular report is widely consulted, EB. We consult across various platforms, face-to-face engagements with CPFs, neighborhood watches, the South African Police Service, the NPA, together with correctional services. So it's consultative. And that particular document has a set of priorities, but also what we need in our province. The whole of government approach is so vital, and that often reverberates in various communities, and that is underpinned by the Western Cape Safety Plan, which speaks to a whole-of-government approach. The Premier is not wanting to give any cabinet member a free pass. Education has a role to play towards safety, to ensure that our young persons are retained in our schools. The work that Cultural Affairs and Sport is doing to ensure that there is mass participation so that we can ultimately identify talent. The work that social development is doing towards making sure that the trauma in many of our communities is actually addressed and services are rendered. Coupled with the work we do in law enforcement, that two-pronged approach, because it cannot merely be a law enforcement aspect. You need to ensure that there's violence prevention and the work that health is doing in that particular space. So violence prevention units are set up in our priority areas, and it is that whole of government approach where all the various departments and stakeholders contribute to address the various issues within a particular area. If I narrow it down to the area of Delft, where I was 2 weeks ago, the VPU, or the Violence Prevention Unit, works with communities. They work with first responders in the neighborhood watch, but also first responders in CPFs, but also work with all the departments to ensure that if there's any particular matter, there's collaboration, because collaboration is so key considering the under-resourcing that we have seen in our country.
The last time we spoke, one of the big things that you were talking about was devolution. And a new policing model, is that still on the cards? And if so, why? Because I know when you use that word, some people agree, there's a lot that disagree with you. So is it still on the cards, and if so, why?
EB, that particular call is now resonating in other provinces.
Okay.
Other provinces are also calling for a new policing model. We have been doing policing the same since 1994, and we cannot do the same thing and expect different results. So devolution in terms of the Constitution, Section 99, ultimately affords 4 powers to be devolved. 206, with specific reference to policing, ultimately provides a mechanism so that policing powers can be allocated to a provincial executive. Where we are sitting, choices are made all the way in Pretoria, which is 1,500 kilometers away from where we are sitting. So it's a discussion that is resonating. It's a discussion where our policing needs and priorities should be taken into account, and the devolution will ultimately place that responsibility on the Western Cape government to ensure that we can professionalize the South African Police Service, that we can capacitate the SAPs fully, but also deploy effectively. Some of our precincts here in the city of Cape Town, we have one particular precinct in a priority area that has 1 officer for every 800 residents. In another area, a leafier suburb, the ratio would be 1 to under 550. So the skewed allocations would be addressed, and that is a matter that I can confidently say is resonating more amongst other provinces as well.
Okay, and finally, you mentioned collaboration, and that isn't just between SAPS and the LEAP officers and Western Cape government. You have to get the people involved, the community. I myself have been involved with Neighborhood Watch. One of the big problems that we deal with is that we want a safer community, but not everybody's going to buy in. Not everybody's going to say like, well, I'm not willing to do patrol or this or that, and time and effort that gets put in. Yet we're all in the same boat. There's crime, there are break-ins that we need to deal with, things that get stolen out of your yard or whatever the case is. So what is your call on community members for this year in an effort to overcome crime?
Our department's tagline is ultimately safety is everybody's responsibility. I say that knowing that various entities have different responsibilities, and we will ensure that those responsibilities are actually fulfilled in communities. But your question specifically speaks to community involvement. I firmly believe, and where I come from, that community involvement is vital, and community members, whether they patrol or are part of a WhatsApp group or share information with the relevant authorities, help and assist us. We have seen in many of the areas when information is forwarded, we are able to then operationalize the response, and community members are pivotal in that. Growing up in Mitchell's Plain, I'm so aware that the role that role models play, the role that sporting coaches play, and all of those particular persons in the community have a role to play. So whether they get involved in their local NGO, in their safety forum, in their neighborhood watch, my encouragement would be to get involved, because crime ultimately affects all of us. And in plain terms, if crime is increasing, we often see it affect property prices, but also the well-being of persons, the well-being and the mental health of so many people. So getting involved is us taking a stand and us playing our role, and those persons should ultimately be commended. I'm so delighted, EB, because whenever I go on radio anywhere, I normally ask the presenter to get involved in the Neighborhood Watch, and here you are already involved. Thank you.
Well, I mean, it's not easy. Again, I'm not always able to patrol or anything like that. You can speak to our Neighborhood Watch. Ours is very much a WhatsApp group that goes around and looking at, there's a sound. What was that? A gunshot? What is that? We see people that's not part of the neighborhood that's walking up and scoping out certain properties. So that's how we kind of keep each other informed. But I would also say, don't wait until something happens before you get involved. Let's try and get involved ahead of time to prevent those kind of things.
I am enjoying what you are saying. It's totally in line with what we are trying to achieve, the proactive approach, getting involved and actually curbing crime before it actually occurs. So thank you to you and to all of the listeners that are actively involved in making sure that communities are actually a place where we have dignity, a place where we have our young people growing up, where they dream. I often see many of our communities and how communities are unable, EB, to a large extent, even dream. And I would want to encourage those persons to not lose hope. It's very difficult. I've seen it personally, but we are making strides. And I will definitely, from my side, continue to do everything in my power and work with other entities and stakeholders to ensure that we arrest the tide and arrest the criminals, of course.
Well, Minister of Police Oversight and Community Safety, Reagen Allen, thank you so much for your time. Here's hoping that there's more collaboration in 2024. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.